I just watched Evangelion, and I know that might surprise people because it's like almost 30 years old, but I finally got to it, and I watched everything in the last 2 weeks, from the TV show to End of Evangelion to the rebuilds, and I enjoyed every single one of the things I watched. Now, of course, I knew what Evangelion was beforehand. I listened to a ton of music from Evangelion. It's such a big, influential anime, and being someone that looked from the outside at this show, I had a lot of misconceptions, and watching the show, the movies, and all that stuff, it was able to clear up some misconceptions, including the misconception that I want to talk about in this video, one that has been pushed by fans of the show for probably decades at this point, and one that influenced my perception or expectations for the End of Evangelion. The notion that End of Evangelion is just a big middle finger to the fans that were upset about the ending of the show. I'm gonna keep it real, bro. That's not true. That's not true whatsoever, and I'll give my reasons, but let's first look at the reasons that people give for the idea that it is. First of all, they'll argue that after the ending of the show, there was some backlash, there was some controversy, and the team and Anno himself got threats, even death threats, from angry fans, giving the motivation to them want to make something to give a middle finger to those fans. Another argument I've seen is that Anno doesn't like otaku culture, and this Reddit post that was pushing this argument put in a quote of Anno sort of criticizing otaku culture. And I suppose the logic is that because Evangelion was so popular, is still so popular among otakus, that to give a middle finger to that culture, they were like, let's put your favorite characters in a lot of fucked up situations. And this isn't really an argument that I hear people give, but this is more me speculating. But I think a lot of people view this movie as a big middle finger to the fans is because it's just kind of sad. Its tone is a little depressing. And if you want to give a middle finger to your fans, I guess you give them a sad film. So first I'll respond to those arguments, and then I'm going to give my arguments to why I think that End of Evangelion is actually a love letter to the fans. Now, be warned, there's going to be some discussion of spoilers, so you've been warned. Going back to the first argument, yes, it's true that the team and Anno did receive death threats and backlash for the ending of the show. And some of those letters were included in the trippy sequences at the end, which were flashing a ton of different pictures, including letters in Japanese, which many call the death threats. Now, to be clear, they actually couldn't show the real letters that they received in the movie because of privacy and law and all that stuff, so they recreated a lot of them, including the death threats, but also including, when you look at the translations, a lot of positive letters. Some being like, oh, I'm in middle school, I really relate to Shinji, I'm having a tough time, but I really love Evangelion, thank you for making it. Meaning, it isn't just the negatives in that sequence, they're showing positives in there, positive letters. The reputation that scene has is sort of, oh, this is just showing off all the hate we got. No, it's not actually. They're showing off a lot of pictures in the first place, but they're actually showing off some of the love that they got from the fans. And this actually connects pretty well to the second argument that they make, that this movie is a big middle finger to otaku culture. Look, you can find a quote of Anno criticizing otaku culture, but you gotta also recognize, bro is an otaku as well, and I'm sure a lot of the people on the team are otaku as well. I think people forget that they're watching Evangelion, a show with hella fan service, that they're watching a show made by the same guy, Anno, that eventually, after making Evangelion, directed Ari Cutie Honey, the OVA, and the live-action film. And if you haven't watched Ari Cutie Honey, watch it on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Please watch it. It's so good. It's sort of like Kill la Kill before Kill la Kill was a thing. It was actually animated and directed by some of the people that would eventually go on to make Trigger, and also the head director was Anno. The show is filled with fan service and references to otaku culture. I don't think that the guy that made that and the guy that made Evangelion is the same guy that would make a film out of spite because he hates otaku culture, and you can criticize some aspects of the culture without being such a spite-filled maniac that you make a movie to attack essentially the fans of your show. I don't think he's that kind of guy. Now, the final reason I think people believe that it is a middle finger to the fans is because it is a very depressing movie, but might I remind you that you are watching Evangelion. If you remember the show, there was a lot of depressing aspects of the show. It's part of the experience, it's part of the fun. Now, let me give you my reasons why I think End of Evangelion was actually a love letter to the fans. Number one, a lot of characters got their time to shine. I gotta start with Asuka, bro. You know, by the end of the series, confused, she was mad depressed. In the start of the movie, she was comatose, but at some point she woke up and she realized that she wanted to live more than anything else. Not only that, but she was also sort of able to restore her relationship with her mother when she realized that her mother was part of Eva too. And she viewed the AT fields, the ability to fight, as sort of her mother protecting her. She fixed her relationship with her mother without even her mother needing to say a word, bruh. And not only that, but she then continued to fight. She fought all those fucking soldiers attacking Nerve HQ. She fought the mass-produced Evas. She was absolutely badass. Okay? Now, did she win at the end? No. I mean, technically, she lived by the end of the movie, but that's besides the point. But she went down fighting and looking so fucking cool. If you're an Asuka fan, you must have loved that scene, bro. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Not only did Asuka get more development, but so did Rei. Let's keep it real, bro. Rei was kind of underdeveloped in the series. You can actually read it like Anno and a lot of the crew didn't really know what to do with her after the episode where Shinji opened her pod and then she smiled and all that stuff. They were like, oh shit, we just completed her arc in one episode. So in the movie, we're dealing with Rei 3, not Rei 2. Rei 2 died. Rei 3 doesn't remember what Rei 2 saw, but Rei 3 kind of remembers what Rei 2 saw in a way, but subtly, kind of, almost. But we finally got to see the real Rei in this movie. The moment when Gendo was trying to do what Gendo wanted to do, but then Rei was like, you know what? No. I'ma help Shinji. She didn't quite remember every single detail, but she remembered that she wanted to help Shinji. It was that moment, in my view, where Rei stopped being Rei 1, 2, or 3, and Rei became Rei. Rei became human. When Rei said no, she gained her humanity because she finally made a choice that she truly believed in. Now, this might not sound that important to you, but it was important to me, okay? We finally saw a little bit of a spotlight on Maya, one of the Nerve staff employees that we saw in every operation, but ultimately was very much a side character. We finally got to see her more as a human in both her struggles and when she died. It's shown throughout the TV show that she has a lot of admiration for Ritsuko, right? But in this movie, it's made clear, like, it's more than just admiration at a professional level. Like, she likes her, bro. She has a crush on her. We also got to see aspects of her personality. When Nerve was under attack, she did not want to kill another human being. She refused to pick up arms. So she was just kind of hiding under the table, which maybe you can call that cowardice, but I think it adds a big humanness, for lack of better words, to the Nerve staff, and makes you feel a lot of sympathy for her, especially, but also for the entire Nerve staff. It was able to add tension, it was able to add emotion, and you felt really bad for her. And it made you feel something, okay? I think that was a big part of this movie. And when she eventually, you know, got turned into orange soda, when she was able to finally have that moment where the figment of Ritsuko was able to hold her, give her a hug, and give her the romance that she very much desired for at least a little second, oh my god. It made me feel something. It made me feel a lot of things, okay? And of course, Shinji got development as well. He's the main character of the show. And a lot of people didn't really like him in this movie. I get why. I understand. But he gets to come to a conclusion which I feel is better than the conclusion that he came to in the show. I think it gave for a much proper ending than the show gave, while just as confusing as the ending the show gave. This is another big reason I feel that this movie is a big love letter to the fans, because not only did I think that the ending was a bit better than the show, probably significantly better than the show, a lot better than the show, but I think that it was also a happier ending, ironically. It's bittersweet, just like the original ending was bittersweet. But look, the conclusion that Shinji came to, I think, is the message of the movie. He pretty much went through the entire process of the human instrumentality project, and he came to the conclusion of, you know what? Things are kind of bad. I don't really feel right. I don't really feel happy. I don't really feel wanted. I don't like myself. But if I'm alive, if I'm around, things can improve. So even when facing the Human Instrumentality Project, which frankly I guess could have gave him finally some peace, being one mind with the rest of humanity, he made the decision himself, the conscious decision of, you know what, things kind of suck, but I think I can make it better if I'm alive. I want to be alive. And I think that's a beautiful message. You know who else had that same idea? Asuka had that same idea. With all her insecurities, with all this and all that, with the fact, with what happened to her by the end of the show and what was happening at the beginning of the movie, she made that realization earlier in the movie that I want to be alive, and lo and behold, who's there? When Shinji shows up at the beach, the other person that also emphasized how much she wanted to live, Asuka, was also there. I think that that's beautiful, bro. I think that that's actually such a happy ending compared to the show, which pretty much said by the end of it that, oh, Gendo was alive, the Seele was alive, the Human Instrumentality Project is actually a pretty good thing. Look at how happy Shinji is. Look at the congratulations. Now, I'm not saying you can't enjoy the ending to the show, but I think that that's just as bittersweet as waking up in a barren world. At least he wanted to wake up in that barren world. In the show, he didn't want the Human Instrumentality Project to happen. He didn't want the Third Impact to happen. But the Third Impact happened. Humanity was essentially killed off and made into one big mind. So the barren world still exists in the show. The only difference is, I mean, Shinji was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, getting rid of the entirety of humanity is kind of alright. I didn't really like that. Which is why when I did watch End of Evangelion, I was significantly more satisfied with the ending of the movie than I was with the ending of the show. Because he had choice, because he wanted to be alive, he said, shit sucks, but I'ma make it better, even in a wasteland. Okay? Now, my final point of why I think this is a love letter to the fans actually moves away from plot elements and to more real-life reasons. Look, these people made Evangelion. They made the TV show. They put their heart and soul into the writing, into the animation, into the characters, into everything. And I think that it's much more likely that there's probably just a lot of people behind the scenes that just wanted to make more Evangelion. Wanted to make something for the fans. Because they have passion for creation, including Anno. That's the reason the rebuilds were made. And they made something great. And they wanted to make more. And on that note, I think it's worth noting that the start of the creation of the rebuilds was actually in the early 2000s. But Anno wanted to focus on other projects like Cutie Honey in 2004, which those kind of took priority over rebuilding Evangelion. But my point in bringing that up is even after the relatively recent release of End of Evangelion, they still wanted to make more Evangelion. I think it's much more likely that there's just people with passion and love for this series that made this series that wants to make more of the series than those people being like, yeah, I know I put in a lot of effort into this show, but I fucking hate the fans. So you know what? Let me make a movie for them to say, fuck you. No, I don't think that's very likely. And frankly, the arguments for that being the case are kind of unbacked. Now, going full circle for a moment, back to when I didn't watch anything related to Evangelion, I came into this series with this idea that, oh yeah, this End of Evangelion movie I heard of, I know this series is critically acclaimed, but oh yeah, it was just made as a big fuck you to the fans by the creator. I think looking back, that's kind of a weird thing to think of when you're about to watch a series. I can imagine that would probably turn a lot of people off from watching a series if they just think that the creator of the series hates the fans enough to make a whole movie to spite them. Honestly, I think it's almost a little disrespectful that narrative is so commonplace. Because Anno doesn't seem like a spiteful or mean guy. He just seems like a guy that's creative and likes to create. So that should be his reputation, rather than some spiteful guy that just makes his character suffer for the sake of making his fans feel bad. Because I don't think that represents him. He seems pretty cool in my opinion. And that narrative makes him seem a lot less cool to the outsider's perspective. If you get what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be preachy, you know? I'll just finish off by saying this. I liked every single Evangelion thing that I watched, including the rebuilds. I gave the show a 9 out of 10. I gave End of Evangelion a 10 out of 10. I gave the rebuilds an 8 out of 10. What you heard in this video was not my hottest takes. I'll finish this video by saying it. And that is, Misato did nothing wrong.